Alright, welcome back to the channel, The Divine Path. Here we are once again. So today I want to go over the school system, right? The education system, as they call it. You know, education is all about, schools. Schools are all about control. That's all they're about. They're about indoctrinating children to think a certain way, right? They're about making a child into a slave. That's basically what a school is. It, children get sent to school. They get taught basic language and math, and then they are taught opinions, right? The theory of evolution. Why is it called the theory of evolution? Because it's a theory. It's just somebody's theory. Why are children learning about that if all it is a theory? And there's many examples of this. Even things like atoms and a load of stuff in science. A whole bunch of stuff in science, right, is theory. It's not actually backed up by any evidence. It's just a bunch of theory. What else? Social studies. This is another subject that I was taught at school. Social studies, which is the studies of basically it's like a mix of history, geology, and different things. But the main thing is they go over is history, right? But a lot of history is bullshit. A whole lot of history is bullshit. And it just, history is basically a divider. Look back at my first video about the, divide and conquer. They always want to divide races, right? And so one thing schools do is they teach children about a so-called racist history, even though it's nowhere near what they say, right? Look at my slavery video if you need reference. There's so much bullshit lies about history that it's ridiculous. That's why it's called history, right? His, H-I-S, his story. That's what the word history means. It's some guy's story of the events that took place. It's not actually based on fact. It's based on one person's view of what happened in the past. And that person, in most cases, 99% of cases, would have been like a government person, right? So, for example, the Civil War in America, right? That, his story, was written by the victors, okay? The victors are the people that write his story, His story is written by the victors, right? And of course it is, if you think about it. The guys that lose, they don't get to write their story, right? They don't get to write his story, their story. The people that win and that kill more of the others, they write his story. So it's coming from only one angle, right? And that's the big problem with his story, is that it's always written from one angle. Okay, so the American Civil War was written by someone or different men from the North, the state that won, or I don't know if the United, were they in states? Did they call them states? I'm not sure, but it was written by the North. Okay, the South didn't write his story that we know. The South didn't write that. The North wrote it, right? So that's how his story is so corrupt, because it's only from the victor's position. It's from one angle, and it's very much in favor of the group of people that win. You know, like the guy, one of the guys from the North in America, the side that won, right? He wrote his story. So, first of all, his story is all bullshit. 90% of it is lies, right? Or half truths, or manipulated, or whatever. You know, it's like a lot of it is bullshit. So that's one reason it shouldn't be taught in schools, because it's lies. But again, back to the race thing, what they do is they always teach children about some sort of racism in the past. You know, like, oh yeah, the white man came to this country and they did these, they enslaved the indigenous peoples, so on and so forth. Or in America, they talk about, the white man, he enslaved the blacks. And they do that, and then children get sort of, they get in their feelings about that. Because, this is might be the first time hearing it. You know what I mean? So they're like, oh shit, your people enslaved mine, blah blah blah. Like children learn racism, or they learn about, my race did this in the past, my race was slaves in the past, so on and so forth. So it fucks with their heads. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say here. All that race talk, all that his story talk, it fucks with kids' heads. It fucks with children's heads. Right? It fucks with their heads. And so, put it this way, right? If you take a white child, by the way, the term white, well, they're not really white, are they? This black and white thing we've been taught, black people are not really the colour of black paint, and white people aren't the colour of white paint. So, first off, calling white people white, black people, it doesn't make sense. But anyway, let's just call it that for argument's sake. Hello, bird. Have you ever noticed these fantails? They always follow you. They always come and they want to be close to people for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe they were people. Maybe people come back as fantails. Because they always seem to follow you and fly really close to you. To people, I mean. They seem very interested in people. But anyway, Maybe they're interested in my dogs as well. I'm not sure. Maybe they're just interested in all living creatures. But where was I going? Yeah, you take a white kid and you take a black kid, right? And you don't tell them a thing about race. They grow up like as neighbors. This white boy and this black boy, they grow up as neighbors, and all their life they never hear a thing about race. Never. Do you think they're going to give a shit what race the other one is? Of course not, because they don't learn about it. You know, they just know each other as friends or neighbors. They couldn't care less about race. It's not until people bring it up, specifically school, that it becomes ingrained in their mind. Okay, so don't fall for that trap. Don't fall for that fucking trap that school's got you in. Because the history is lies, and the history is put there to divide people. Okay, so we've already basically touched on science and his story. Science, a bunch of opinion and a bunch of theories. What else? And his story, a bunch of lies and a bunch of fucking corrupt dividing of kids. Right. Another thing, math. Let's be real. Apart from learning addition, subtraction, and multiplication and division, right, the basics of math, what else do you need to know? You know, why do schools teach algebra and all this crap that like 0.01% of adults use? The only people that use algebra is like mathematicians or, you know, maybe scientists. And that's like 0.01% of the population. So why are they teaching it to every kid? It doesn't make sense, you know, like a lot of these math problems. X, Y equals X, Z squared. Like, who gives a fuck? No one gives a fuck what X, Y equals. Why are you filling our children's head with that shit? You know what I mean? It makes no sense. So they can scrap a lot of math. Teach children to subtract, add, divide, multiply. Maybe the angles of like a triangle, angles of a square, you know, a circle has 360 degrees, you know, maybe that stuff is useful for like building things. But that's about it. That's about all the average kid needs. If someone wants to be a scientist or a mathematician, then they can learn algebra themselves. You don't need to teach it to every kid, right? So obviously English or whatever your national language is, that's important. But for me, like, again, I'll go over this. School is there to indoctrinate kids. I haven't touched on something, by the way. Part of social studies and that sort of thing. You know, they teach kids about climate change. 25 years ago, they were teaching kids about climate change. Where is it? We're now in 2023. They were teaching climate change in 1993. Where is it? Where's this climate change? You know, 25 years ago, they said we had 20 years to save the environment and live. Hello? Nothing's happening. You know, again, climate change is not fact. It's based on theory. right? So why are we teaching children theory and opinion? Which reminds me, this is my whole thing about school. Schools shouldn't teach opinions and theories, because there's a massive problem with this, right? My opinion as a parent might not line up with what the schools think. So I might think that we're living in a simulation, and the schools think that, you know, we're living in this natural world. But the school shouldn't have a right to teach my child something. Okay, this is the point. Schools shouldn't teach opinions. And by the way, that is an opinion. That is an opinion. Whether this world is simulated or natural, or whether the earth is flat or circular, those are all opinions. Again, scientific opinions and scientific theories. None of this has been proven. So schools shouldn't teach opinions. I mean, today we hear about things like schools teaching that if you feel transgender, that you know, it's perfectly fine, and that you should embrace being a non-binary, or whatever the fuck they call them. You know, schools are actually pushing this shit these days. And I say shit, I don't really care what anyone does in their personal life. You know, you want to believe that, you go believe that. That's fine.